Hi, this is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny, sometimes Colorado. Today is September 19th, Sunday, 2021. It has been a very long and arduous month. We launched Alonzo this month. We have the summit this month. Like 50,000+ people, all kinds of crazy shit going on, announcements and this and that and the other, and thousands of smart contracts already deployed, and all kinds of things people are doing. It's crazy. You guys excited? You fired up? Well, I sure as hell am. I'm tired, very tired. But you know what? A little bit more of a sprint. One last big sprint. Then I get to take some time off. At the end of the summit, I am going up to my ranch, and I'm spending 2 weeks shut away from the world. No Twitter, no internet, no nothing. Just me and the bison. And that's going to be fun. Then, mid-October, get back to work, and then go right to Africa. We're going to South Africa, Burundi, I think Malawi, Zanzibar, Kenya, Ethiopia, and Egypt. How about that? All the way through. Lots of heads of state to meet, lots of ministers to meet, lots of private business people to meet, all kinds of cool shit coming down the pipe. Everything is working the way that we thought it was going to work for the most part. There's a few more HFC events that are going to be required to clean stuff up. So what's going to happen is block size over time will get larger, congestion control protocols be put in, optimizations at the ledger put in, compression on the script level put in, all kinds of syntactic sugar put in. PAB is going to rapidly evolve, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And then we're off to the horses with Mithril and sidechains and all the Basho agenda. And we'll be talking about that at the summit. My keynote and the utility track at the summit. We have 4 tracks: utility, adoption, governance, and impact. Tons of presentations in each. A lot of musicians have reached out to us. I just interviewed Paul Oakenfold, and that was fun. And before that, we had ZZ Top and others, and they just call us up and say, hey, we want to do something cool. I said, all right, that sounds fun. So get to play Liaison to Rock Stars, and that's not bad. And we've had a lot of other really cool things come down the pipe. So it's going to be a huge event. You guys may have witnessed the online world. We had a partner called Active Theory that we worked with on that. And they do these big online worlds for conferences because we recognize that because of COVID, it's very difficult for people to travel and aggregate one location. Even if that location, the COVID restrictions aren't too bad, the actual act of getting to that location and getting back into their host countries made it impossible for us to have a giant event with 20, 30,000 people. So we said, if we're going to do an online event, it's not going to be just some shitty Zoom thing. It's got to be fun and exciting. So we worked and partnered with Active Theory, and they built an entire collection of online worlds. I think about 7 of them. One of them I helped design. I said, I want to have the entire world on the back of a giant turtle that's floating through the ocean. There you go. What was that movie? The Never-Ending Story, I think, is the one that had the giant turtle island. Can't remember which one had it, but I watched it as a kid, and we wanted to have some fun with it. God damn it. So yeah, very busy, a lot of things coming along. We're learning a huge amount, community's learning a huge amount, and we're in the slog of it. Development continues to come along at a very nice pace. A lot of commercial adoption. We have 500 deals in our pipeline, about 100 we're probably going to have to cut off because we don't have resources to service them, but it just keeps growing, and that's fun. But anyway, enough about Cardano. This is an AMA, and that means you guys get to decide what the questions are, what the agenda is. And I got my coffee. I'm ready to go. One blessed mama. Okay. Shouldn't buy coffee mugs from Goodwill. Okay. All right, let's see what you got. Hey, Charles, have you always been this articulate and well-spoken? I find myself having trouble putting my thoughts into words when put on the spot. Any advice? So becoming articulate, some people have an easy time with it. I didn't. I'm just a meticulous editor. Anytime I write anything, I think anything, I always revise. I always edit. So things I really care about, sometimes I'll edit it. For every hour I spent writing it, I'll spend like 5 hours editing the document, going through, revising language, thinking about it, and so forth. And I also speak it. So everything I write, I speak. And some cases I'll do speech to text just to see how it sounds. I've done so much public speaking over my life that I've gotten very used to just thinking on the fly, all kinds of things. But that came from a lifetime of reading, a lifetime of writing, and a lifetime of revising in speeches. Toastmasters and all kinds of things you can do to get there. But learn how to be a good editor, and then you'll actually end up being a good writer and be a good speaker. Are you attending the Mike Novogratz podcast? Well, we're just an identity token, according to Mike. We have no adoption. 5 million customers just in one country, million plus community members, thousands of smart contracts being deployed, big ecosystem map, $1 billion fund. But who the fuck cares, right? Because we're just an identity token. Let me translate the billionaires speak for you. They didn't get a chance to get in early to dump on retail people, so it's not a very interesting project. Other projects are very interesting to the VCs because they got in early. Cardano had a very egalitarian distribution way back in the day, and that's why there's a bit of friction with Silicon Valley. The other thing is I have no Silicon Valley friends. I own 100% of my own company, IO Global. So, there was no spread the wealth and love around there. So I just kind of do what I want. That's not something that sells very well in New York or sells very well in California. So they either leave us off the list or talk bad about us. Meanwhile, you have Mark Cuban come out and say, they won't allow DeFi to exist without identity. You can't have anonymous DeFi. Well, Mark, who the fuck was building Prism? Who had this idea 2 years ago? Tested it at scale with millions of people in Africa, working with regulators on it? Huh. Yeah, it's like they have this block in their brain for stuff. But, it is what it is. What can you do? You don't do these things to be loved. You don't do these things to be popular. You do these things because it needs to get done. And if you get it done, it changes the lives of millions of people, eventually billions of people. That's why we're here, and that's why we do what we do. And everybody wrote us off as dead every year, every single year. Either they ignored us or wrote us off for dead. And lo and behold, they're still doing it. CoinDesk and Cointelegraph and Decrypt and all these other guys. And we're still here. And we're still making progress, and we're still growing. Community's not going away. Value comes from you, the people. Being here, thinking, building, acting, doing. That's where value comes from. There's millions of you. This goes on forever. If there are tens of millions of you, we change governments. If there are hundreds of millions of you, we change the world. That's how those numbers work. Saw the Eagles on Friday. I tweeted a little bit of that. Joe Walsh was there. He's got a little hunchback and he's got the guitar and he sung Life's Been Good. And he's like, my Maserati does 185. And I was like, damn, Joe still got it, man. He's still got it. And of course they had Deacon Fry there. So Sean Fry was one of their founding members and he died, I think, in 2015. And so his son Deacon came on board. The kid's like 24. He's super young. You got all these guys in their 70s. And you got Deacon there. They're all looking at him like, we're going to bed after this, but you actually have to go and do all the rock star stuff. And he's like, oh, man, I got the whole weight of the Eagles on my back. I got to be the young 70s rock star. Poor kid. Dex. Well, shit, we got 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever launching on Cardano's. They're doing shit. There's Meld and Sunday Swap and all these other guys, and they're going to compete and do stuff. What do you mean by DEX? Charles, how do you feel about any unethical projects getting built on your blockchain? Is it something you have to deal with? No. Why? Because it's open infrastructure. If it's open infrastructure, by definition, good people and bad people have equal access to it. Community curation, regulation, and other things will show up to help clean that up. And that's the point of Voltaire. That's the point of Catalyst. That's the point of ambassadors and the foundation and point of view guides, using your brains. Almost all these scams are not one way. Okay, the difference between a scam and a robbery and a burglary is the burglary is you're not home, or you're home, someone shows up and takes your shit and runs off. A scam, they show up, talk to you, and convince you to do something with them that ends up having you be the loser in that proposition. So you need to vaccinate, you need to inoculate your mind against these types of things. Giveaway scams are the canonical example of that. I come almost a weekly basis. We are not giving away ADA. We are not giving away ADA. I tweet it. I make videos of it. I tell people in person. And the community acts as surrogates, and they broadcast and they amplify. And we do everything in our power. Every day, there's no exception. I get an email from somebody. Hey, I didn't get my ADA. It's just extraordinary to me. If they did 5 seconds of Google searching, giveaway scams are a scam, giveaway scams are a scam, the videos are there, the pins are there, all that stuff doesn't matter. Somehow they just want to believe it's true, and so they go and do it. And sure, there's liability. Liabilities to YouTube. They make money from this with sponsored videos and all these other things, hijack channels. If I mention COVID in this AMA, YouTube will put a little chyron at the bottom that says COVID information. Okay, their natural language processing algorithms are so fucking good that they can do that. This video is probably going to have it because I said COVID. And they just do that automatically. It's there. It was a priority. Meanwhile, giveaway scam. These videos always look the same. They have same characteristics, same setup, and they're across our entire industry. Mike Saylor, Elon Musk, Vitalik, myself, Adam Back, across the whole industry. Steve Wozniak and Ripple are both suing YouTube over it. No chyron. Giveaway scams are a problem. Never give away your ADA. Wonder why? So that's unethical, and that's the legacy side of things. What does YouTube do about that? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. At least here, when we come to the summit, we're going to talk about certified dApps, dApp stores, all kinds of things. There's all kinds of real things in the utility side, and what that allows is both professional and community curation to help force projects into a certain mindset. There's also a huge conversation about governance. Governance isn't just about execution. It's about auditability and transparency and integrity and these types of things. We as a community have to work together to create those standards for our community and for the industry if we're ever going to get out of all of this. And those unethical projects can't survive in that respect. If we don't work together, well, then they'll just continue existing. 100%. I was going to click something else. Wow. Charles, are we happapus or sadapus? We are happapus today, sir. It is a happapus month. Yeah, it was Glenn Frey. Yeah, whatever. He was one of the founders of the Eagles. It's Deacon is his son. I thought it was Fry. It might be Frey. Is it Fry or Frey? You guys remember? How is the crypto lobby effort going? I'm probably going to sneak away to DC and actually talk to some people about that right after the conference, then go on vacation. So there's going to be a meet Charles Hoskinson in DC, but a lot of lawmakers. Also talked to the Attorney General of the state of Colorado here a few days ago, and probably talk to the governor in a bit. Obviously, we engage a lot on state politics in Wyoming, and then usually federal politics through the Senate. It's progressing. There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of unfair belief structures that exist. And it's very clear there are members of the Treasury Department that are just saying things that are nuts, absolutely nuts. So in other words, uphill. But, the industry will work together and we'll get it done. I keep getting bugged by Hashgraph people, Charles. What is the deal of this Hashgraph stuff? I don't know. I've always maintained the same position. I know nothing of Hashgraph. I'm never going to know anything of Hashgraph. They seem to have this bizarre idea that intellectual property is a good thing and it protects the ecosystem, which is against the entire ethos of the floss movement. And that's a prerogative decision that the principals of the project made. And then they like to come to our community and cram into our face, oh, look at all these commercialization projects we do. Sure. Okay, but I don't care. Why do you care? It feels like a deep insecurity that they have, at least members of the community. Every tweet, every Reddit post, everything on Telegram, hash graph, hash graph, hash graph. Look at this thing. It's like, guys, go somewhere else. Okay, if you're so great and you're selling, why do you need to come into this community and just shitpost and troll? Why? Why do you need to attack me? Why do you need to do all this stuff? I have a pretty reasonable belief set here. I pay attention to open source protocols and projects because that technology allows me to freely use it and collaborate with it. And we do research partnerships all the time with different blockchains that are open source. If there are patents or things that are closed source or there's restrictive licenses, we just don't work in that domain. There's a long history of this in cryptography. There's a great signature scheme that came out that was a building block for lattice-based crypto. It's called Entrue, and it's patented. No one uses it. Brilliant stuff, brilliant technology, but no one uses it because it's patented. Okay, if there's intellectual property and you have open source alternatives, go do those open source alternatives. So I'm much more inclined to look at what Emin's doing in Avalanche and their metastable consensus than look at Hashgraph. Somewhat comparable, but Avalanche would be far better in my view. Why? Because it's open. The ideas are open. We can talk. We can collaborate. We can write papers together. There may be things they're doing that we can borrow. Things we're doing, they can borrow. That's how things should work. And these people, they can say, well, that doesn't matter because we're getting commercial adoption. It's like, sure, MongoDB has commercial adoption too. It's live and let live, guys. Stop being so insecure. Your community is not my problem. What do you think about the discussions of ivermectin as a COVID treatment? It's an antiviral and antiparasitic drug. It's been around for a very long time. There's an enormous amount of misinformation that exists. There's a lot of studies outside of the United States that are showing efficacy in the early treatment of COVID. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a virologist. I'm not a medical researcher. But I do know that when you say we're going to do an all of the above thing, and we're going to look at things as exotic as remdesivir, and we're going to do research there, that everything should be on the table. Pre-approved prescription drugs that can be repurposed should be at the highest of the hierarchy of research because those drugs have already proven to be safe and effective in different domains and contexts. And they have a long track record of being used. They're cheap to manufacture, although there are some issues. I think Bayer owns the bacteria that can make ivermectin, so it's not as easy to make as other drugs like hydroxychloroquine, but it is something that should have been studied way back in the beginning of the pandemic, and we would already have dozens of phase 3 clinical trials done. Now, there are a lot of meta-analysis that I've seen. Dr. John Campbell presented one that showed that there actually is mortality reduction there. And there's certainly people on the front line, critical care pulmonologists and others that swear by it. And I know damn well a lot of people take it when they get COVID and they recover. Is it anecdotal? Is it real? Who knows? Complicated condition. But what's extraordinary to me is that people with a bachelor's degree in journalism that are so far away from medicine, they don't even know where your organs are in your body, go ahead and proclaim from the tower that the drug does not work and it's horse dewormer. Person who discovered it got a Nobel Prize. It's not. It's used in humans. I've taken it once in Africa. It's a common drug. Billions of people have probably taken it through the years. So it's extraordinary to me that they've taken that position as if that's an established fact. And they say, trust the science. And you say, okay, well, what scientific stuff has come out that shows that that doesn't work? Not a lot. There are some credible placebo-controlled phase 3 clinical trials, double-blind, that are coming out with a large enough cohort of patients that will probably get an idea of the efficacy of ivermectin. It's more likely to work than hydroxychloroquine, but who knows? But it's just one of many, many, many things that goes into treating COVID as a condition. And you can't put all your eggs in one basket. I think the principal argument against ivermectin is this belief that somehow, because ivermectin's around, if it was to work, it would prevent people from getting vaccinated. That's another interesting topic. 73%, I think, of the adult population in the United States are vaccinated. Last year, this time, we had about 9 million active COVID cases. This year, this time, we have 9.2 million active COVID cases. And the unvaccinated population was 100% this year last time because the vaccines weren't out yet. Okay, there was insignificant amounts of like phase 3 clinical trial people that had some degree of immunity, but okay. So the vaccines don't stop the spread and they don't stop people from getting infected. What they do is they stop the emergence of hospitalization and death, which is exactly what we want. So if you get infected from any variant of COVID post-vaccination, there's a very high probability that that the vaccination will, combined with the natural immunity, give you broad spectrum immunity. So there was a very famous virologist who was on the Joe Rogan podcast named Vincent Rocaniello, and Vincent is from Colombia. He's been doing this for fucking forever. And he runs a podcast called This Week in Virology that I do listen to a lot. And he mentioned that there's a lot of evidence that if you stack a vaccine with natural immunity, these two things together create a broad spectrum immunity that seems to hold up regardless of the variants that are present. So if that's the case, this second wave we're seeing, given that everybody's vaccinated, that means we won't see another wave next year, which is why it's bizarre to me that we have these booster shots being pushed. They're not necessary. If the vaccines are protecting the vast majority of vaccinated people with these variants that are in circulation from hospitalization and death, if you look at the ICU numbers, I looked them up recently, 25,000 people in the United States are in ICU with COVID out of a capacity of about 90,000. And so they're almost at capacity, the ICUs right now. Almost 98% are unvaccinated. And of the 2% who are vaccinated, there's usually more to that story there. So this is really a crisis of the unvaccinated in that they're the ones at risk. But I don't believe there's any evidence at all that the unvaccinated pose an existential risk to the vaccinated. If they make this argument, well, but we need to, because if we don't, there's going to be lots of mutations and those mutations will come back. Let's be clear here. We could have 100% vaccination rate in the United States, 100%. And that argument still holds because we don't have vaccination globally. So the only way of stopping that would be to restrict all travel in the world and have quarantine zones at the borders, like the Black Death is coming out. So unless that's the mindset, there's no logical consistency in this argument that the unvaccinated are an existential threat to the vaccinated. They're not. When you look at the numbers, and when the vaccinated contract COVID, they have usually a mild to asymptomatic case. That's what all the evidence and data are showing us from the CDC. And then after they contract it, they have broad spectrum immunity, which is another thing that we've seen and studied. So you don't need the boosters. You don't need vaccine passports. It'll burn itself out and you'll have herd immunity here, and herd immunity without mortality. And it's okay for people to get sick. We accept that every year with influenza and all kinds of other communicable respiratory diseases. It's not okay for people to be hospitalized. It's not okay for people to have permanent damage as a consequence of that. And that's really what the vaccines are doing. But, this is just a medical industrial complex thing. What our government in the United States has done is it has done the most immoral and lawful thing I can imagine. They've let private companies take no risk and gave them billions of dollars to develop a product that private company gets to own and then sell at an enormous markup. Pfizer made $33 billion off of COVID. And then with mandates and passports, they create a perpetual market where every year everybody has to buy that product that we, the taxpayer, paid for. If this wasn't some bizarre fascistic, corporatistic thing, a reasonable, well thought out government, if they were doing this, would have nationalized the vaccines because we paid for them using the Defense Production Act. And it would have also taken the liability protections away. And so if you get harmed from the substance, you can sue the government because they nationalized it and they take that liability. It would have removed a lot of the nepotism and corruption. Instead, they're going to blend the flu vaccine and they're going to blend the COVID vaccine together. Their nano flu is already one platform for that. Moderna is working on a platform for that. And it's going to be a yearly occurrence. And now we're papers, please, because of vaccine passports. And travel will continue to be restricted into 2023, more likely than not, which is just extraordinary. It's not a free society. This is not a free world. This is medical tyranny, in my view. And it's not backed by science or evidence. You can see it in the numbers. You can see it through Israel, all of these other places. And they say, oh, but the ICUs are filled. They're filled with unvaccinated people. Be fucking real about it. And again, 100% vaccinated people, we still have unvaccinated countries. Where's the vigilance to get vaccines there? Well, this whole allowing private companies to own these things that are connected to national security kind of prevents that, because a CEO of a private company gets to decide instead of the world with open source vaccines. Going back to patents, which I hate so much. It's a fucking joke. By the way, where did the flu go? 35 million people in 2019, 2,700 people in 2020. Where's the story on that? We've never defeated the flu before, but it just disappeared. Ugh. Private companies made it, Chucky. No, they received first money from BARDA, the Vaccine Challenge. Then they received enormous government subsidies, and then they removed all liability from it. You didn't make a product. If I paid for your product, I created a guaranteed market for your product, and I de-risked the product. If there's any defect or problem with it, you have no liability. That's not free market, okay? I don't know what the fuck that is, but that's not free market. And if you think that is, you're not very smart, ape. Pfizer didn't accept the money, but Moderna did. Oh, but they did. BioNTech got a fuck ton of money from the German government, and BioNTech was the one who made it. And Pfizer has a built-in guarantee in their distribution. There was in the Operation Warp Speed, a purchase of 100 million units of it. So they pre-bought it, and the money was upfront guaranteed. And all the R&D was subsidized by the European Union through partnership. That's clever marketing. You guys are so fucking brainwashed. Turn off CNN. Actually, okay, this is an interesting question right here. So how do you feel about saying that money does not make you happy as long as you're healthy? I personally think that wealth makes better health. Okay, I have a story about this. So when I first came into the cryptocurrency space, there was a person who came from a very prominent family. He was actually the descendant of two prominent banking families in the United States. And he was worth probably over $1 billion. He had 14 trust funds. And so every time I go to New York, I'd see him, and he was always surrounded by a posse of people, and most of them were sycophants. And a deeply unhappy guy, very smart, very talented, but deeply unhappy guy. And he ended up dying of a drug overdose in rehab. And he was a champion scuba diver, and he started fashion labels. He did all this stuff, but he wasn't a very happy guy. He was always chased by his demons. Why? Because he had all this money, but it came from this legacy, and the money didn't validate or justify him. It was a burden and responsibility that he didn't really want to sign up for. He was born into that burden and responsibility. We have this mistaken belief that wealth somehow gives you health, happiness, all these other things. It doesn't do any of that. You see, if you are just given something and there's no skill involved in that, it's like that Twilight Zone episode where the dude always wins and he finds out he's in hell. That's literally what that is. And even if you've earned it, you're not defined by the wealth. It's an after effect of the things that you did. I built Ethereum with Vitalik and was there for 5 months. Okay. I did Cardano. I've done all these things in my life. Oh, and you can read articles and books and blog posts and see all the videos and the journey and the progression and the people I've met and see the hair fall off my head, the belly get bigger. It's a shared experience. It's the journey of a lifetime, 52 countries in a handful of years. Just about to go meet 5 heads of state next month. Go see the tombs in Egypt. It's going to be a lot of fun. That is what matters, is the journey, the experiences, the things you do, the people you meet along the way, the things you accomplish and build. Now, you might get fabulously wealthy doing that, or you might end the entire journey absolutely abject poverty and broke. There's been a few American presidents who were poor when they retired and died, but there's an amazing journey there. So there's something beyond the raw acquisition of wealth and power that creates meaning in life. And you have to get to that, the purpose of life. And it's very personal. It's connected to your lifestyle, your values, your culture, your legacy. Some people, they live through their children, and the whole arc of their life is to sacrifice for those children so those children can have a significantly better life. We see this a lot with immigrants in America when they come. They say, it's not my place to be the rich guy, and it's not my place to live well. It's my place to create a foundation so my kids can never know the horrors that I knew in my host country. For other people, it's academic accomplishment. For other people, it's musical accomplishment. For other people, it's just religious awakening. Okay, but the point is, it's meaning. That's the key. And as you do that, if it happens that those things are commercially beneficial to society, almost always you'll generate as an after effect value, money from that. If they're not commercially beneficial to society, then you'll generate something else, but you're not doing that for the wealth. You're doing that because whatever that is, it creates meaning for you, and you can optimize around that. And in terms of better health, wealth oftentimes doesn't lead to that. You get surrounded by sycophantism, quackery. You get surrounded by lifestyle diseases. You get a lot of toxicity in your life. The more stress you have in your life, the more effect the stress has on you. And almost always it can wear you down. There was a founder of a Silicon Valley startup. I run into him every now and then. He died in a shed, burnt to death after inhaling nitric oxide. And I think it was only 140, 150 pounds. Super nice guy. But the lifestyle, all these other things around him, it made things much worse off. And so in many cases, wealth can actually deteriorate, destroy health. And lottery winners are a great example of that. If you follow people who win the lottery, most of them end up broke within 10 years. And a lot of them, the whole life gets destroyed. One guy, happily married grandfather, everything in his life going fine, small business owner, wins like $100 million, $200 million. I can't remember how much it is. Within 10 years, he's divorced. His granddaughter died of a drug overdose. He's lost all the money. And he's got a criminal record. Everything went to hell. The wealth destroyed his health, and the wealth destroyed his life. Remember that lesson. See, this is another misconception right here. Money is a necessary tool. No, people are necessary. Everything you want to do in life, there's a person either to make the product that you need to do that thing, or a person that you need to work with to do that. You have this bizarre idea that money is the universal currency to compel people to do that. That's true, but if that was the case, ask yourself this question. How much money would you take to go and participate in a suicide mission? Like 9/11 just recently, the 20th anniversary of 9/11. A lot of people don't know this, but Flight 93, as it was flying in the sky, the Air National Guard sent a fighter jet on an intercept mission, but they didn't have time to arm the fighter jet that they were sending for the intercept mission. And they knew that the Flight 93 was headed to go hit a building and kill lots of people. The two pilots that were in that fighter jet, they knew that the only way they were going to be able to down the plane was to collide into the flight, the suicide mission. So you tell me, how much money would you accept to go on a suicide mission? The answer is, I wouldn't accept any because I can't use the money. Oh, well, but why were those pilots then willing to do that? There must be some sort of higher inspiration or ethic that inspired them to go and do that. Preservation of life or nationalism or a belief that that's their duty in that role. But then why would people volunteer and sign up for something that they have to sacrifice for others? And that sacrifice is not monetary. Think about it. So the key is when you have a passion and you have meaning in life, the necessary tool is the ability to spread that passion and that meaning and find like minds in that. And they'll connect with you, work with you, and give you the shirt on their back if they need to in order to get that done. That's the necessary tool in life. You think money is? Everything in your life is going to be so little and not satisfying. Every relationship will be transactional. Every event and experience is always a price tag, and you'll always lose because money's rigged. Are you self-made? Yes, sir. Oh, we have another propaganda thing here. Hang on a second. I got that damn Joel Walsh song in my head now. Life's been good. Food, water, transport, and rent cost money. Our national debt is growing daily. We need more money to repay those in power. Well, yeah, they cost money, but you also can just get them for free, too. People give them to you, right? With extended UTXO, will you be able to build your stablecoin, algorithmic stablecoin? Yes. In fact, we're building a beta of it to show people. DJed. Coming soon. What projects on Cardano have pleasantly surprised you? Well, I'm surprised by the level of productivity and quality that I've seen from some of the thinking behind the DEXs. And I think there's a lot of great potential technological collaboration there, creating a unified view of how to emulate an account model and a unified view of how to assist them with scaling. They all have different ideas of that, but it'd be nice to actually create some consolidated standards there. I think there's a big misconception about what blockchains are for with applications. And this comes from either people not really understanding how software works or from bad marketing that came out of Ethereum back in the early days when they were pushing that whole world computer thing. And you see other protocols like, we're the world computer. Okay. Vitalik himself will be the first person to tell you that Ethereum was not meant to be some server in the sky with unlimited elastic resources. He'd say, hey, it's like a hand calculator. It doesn't have a lot of power. It doesn't have a lot of computational ability, memory. It doesn't have a lot of storage. And that's by design because it's a replicated system. It'll take 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years to figure out all the protocols necessary to create a truly decentralized, giant, parallelizable computer that has Ethereum-like properties, okay? That's not the point of these ledgers. The point of these ledgers are that you have programs and you want properties in those programs that run. You'd like censorship resistance. You'd like tamper resistance. You'd like inclusive accountability, meaning you can check the outputs and verify that they're being honest. You want global accessibility with these types of things. You want transparency with these types of things. You want equal consideration in the application of the rule set with these types of things, meaning that Alice is treated the same way as Bob is treated, okay? You don't want Alice to have to stand in line to go to the front door, but Bob gets to go around the back door and hang out with the band backstage. Everybody has to stand in the same line. When you want those properties, the point of the blockchain is to somehow take a collection of the business logic of your application and run those things in a way so that we get those guarantees. You don't have to trust the vendor. So here's a great example. A poker game. Okay. How do you know that the game is provably fair? Does it matter to you that the game is running on Bob's server versus running this great decentralized utopia? The crux of it is the players I'm playing aren't robots, and that the deck of cards is a fair deck of cards, and there's not collusion occurring so that a certain set of actors always get better cards than me. Okay? So you want provably random numbers. So you have a provably random shuffle, and you want human actors playing against you, not bots. Okay. You can include that logic with a blockchain, and then you can run the GUI on your client side, and the server can do all the other stuff and the player matching and all these other things. The point is the blockchain is acting as an audit layer, an enforcer. It's basically the validator in chief. It's the judge that's making sure that you have honest consideration. Also, what do you want to know? When you win, you get your winnings. There's nothing worse in the world than fighting a hard fight, you win, and then you have all this money that you're supposed to redeem. They say, oh, so sorry, we've decided not to pay you. So you'd guarantee that upon victory and loss, the losers lose and the winners win, and the money flows accordingly. That's what the blockchain does for you. You connect it to an identity store. You can do proof of human things, random CAPTCHAs and all these things. You can act as an audit and accountability layer, as a source of randomness. It can ensure that front running doesn't happen, all kinds of things if it's designed properly. Now, does it then need to record every single event of your poker game, every hand, all these other things? Scale that to 10 million players every single day, 8 hours, 9 hours a day, terabytes of noise of the history of the game? No, doesn't need to record any of that. It's just there to ensure that the elements of those particular games are done fairly. So what does this mean? It means that that ledger is going to work with off-chain infrastructure that's running in people's servers or in some sort of other network, like a layer 2 network or something like that. And you trust the other people's servers and layer 2 networks because the validation predicates give you that. UTXO is perfect for this. It's not running stateful, event-driven programs that are in a loop waiting for input. It's basically executing units to transform state value from one to another. And each time it does that, you have determinism and predictability, and you don't need some notion of a global order or anything like that. So what's surprising me is that a lot of people are starting to realize that. I thought it'd be a lot harder of a fight to undo the profound damage that was done with that garbage marketing about World Computer that came out 8 years ago. And people are starting to realize that there's more to the picture, more to the story, and there's an enormous amount of creativity with that. Proof-carrying code, ZK rollups, layer 2 solutions like state channels, all these things where people are starting to figure out how do we create a hosting layer, but keep the hosting layer audited and accountable on the layer 1. What does that mean? That technology can scale to the billions of people. Is it censorship resistant? Of course. Because while you can censor a clique of the network, you can shut down, let's say, the American stake pools or something like that. You can't do it for every country in the world, and it's the smart cow effect. You just need one to escape, and the network is self-propagating. It's a virtual resource, and privacy technology will scale up if that work comes. So I'm very surprised about that quality of thought and how people are approaching the problem, and it's something that's really been a great boon for everybody in industry. Thoughts on the Rick and Morty finale? Holy shit. Well, Justin Roiland is a fan of Cardano. So from time to time, I'll ping him on private messages on Twitter. Like when they did the first episode, they had Mr. Nimbus. I just sent him Mr. Nimbus, which was pretty funny. It was a weird season. Rick was so uncharacteristically off this season. So for the first few seasons, Rick was like a god, and he was a misanthropic, tragic Greek god, but he was very powerful and undefeatable. And then season by season, that power curve has gone down to a point where he's getting his ass kicked on a regular basis. Like, I think that the great turning point episode was when he fought that Zeus-like god when he was having affairs with planets, and he lost. The Rick of season 1, that probably wouldn't have happened. And it was, oh, wow, Rick lost. Interesting. So all throughout season 5, getting his ass kicked. And it led me to believe that maybe we were actually witnessing the backstory of Evil Morty. So I asked Justin. He's like, no, there is an Evil Morty part, but no. I was like, okay, didn't get it right. And there was all these Reddit conspiracies and everything, and they were trying to piece it together because the timelines weren't matching and so forth. And there's a lot of that stuff. But anyway, season 5, episode 10, where they had the Citadel with the second half after the whole Samurai Rick head fuck, where you think it's going to be like an anime episode with the crows. They basically revealed everything, Rick's entire backstory, and the fact that Mortys are like fungible. And then you realize that like Morty's not even C-137's Morty. C-137 Rick never even had a Morty because he lost Beth early on when she died from the other Rick. And this whole finite curve plot line is kind of interesting because it's an externalization of emotional trauma of the character, where the character basically constructs a wall around the multiverse where he can't be hurt, and he's always going to win in that because he's the most powerful being in that multiverse wall. So it's like a cradle. And what's great about A Hero's Journey, which is what the show writers of Rick and Morty are so in love with, Joseph Campbell, Hero's Journey, is that you have to leave the crib. You have to leave the village. You have to leave the Shire if you're Bilbo Baggins and go on this crazy adventure and deal with the dragon and so forth in order to be able to get the gold and have growth and so forth. So over the arc of the entire show, nothing mattered, and Rick had stacked the deck where he would always in the end win. And then suddenly, Evil Morty destroys the finite curve and creates a reality where Rick is no longer the smartest, most powerful man and no longer guaranteed to win. So in other words, you have stakes. So it's kind of like going from the holodeck where you have safety protocol enabled to turning off the safety protocol so you can actually die in the holodeck. Okay, there's no more tutorial level. There's no more training wheels. So what does this effectively mean? It means that Rick, for the first time since the original events when his family was killed, has stakes. And he actually live and deal with those stakes. So it's actually a brilliant narrative arc that they constructed with that whole finite curve plot line. The other thing is that it set up a even greater villain than Evil Morty, which was another beautiful bait and switch that existed. Because basically what Dan Harmon did and the other writers is that there's now the ultimate villain, which is Rick, the evil Rick who killed his family. He spent a big chunk of his life and existence chasing this evil Rick who killed his family and killed tons of Ricks and built the Citadel as a consequence and everything. So that was really like the impulse that knocked him out of a peaceful, happy life and made him the nihilistic, depressed, given up Rick. But what's interesting is it's a very high probability, if they're writing correctly, that evil Rick is actually outside of the finite curve that Rick had constructed, which means that leaving the cradle may actually put him closer to his end goal of getting rid of that. Now, the other really fucked up thing is there's like when Beth was in Fruity Land or whatever it was, the Rainbow Land, he said, "Oh, I'm a horrible father." Well, actually, it wasn't true. He was a great father. He was actually prepared to set aside all this stuff to raise Beth as a real dad. So by injecting himself in a different Rick's life, he accepted the sins of that Rick because he was so lonely. He'd rather be with somebody, but he never got the chance to actually be a proper dad. And so now that finite curve's gone and the whole world is open, it's going to completely change all the dynamics and so forth. So it was actually a beautiful season finale. And I was very surprised because there were some weak episodes in the season. But, that's what Rick and Morty does. They always find a way. It gets a little dry, and then they just get you back in with an amazing episode. Last season was the Vat of Acid episode, where Morty lives his entire life and gets in a plane crash and has this amazing relationship and finds true love. And then, Jerry ruins it at the click of a button. So that's pretty cool. And these are not all new tropes. I mean, Star Trek: The Next Generation did that with the Inner Light. Patrick Stewart, Picard. He gets hit with the probe, and he lives an entire lifetime in like 30 minutes. And then he comes out and he's playing the flute, and has this huge formative arc on him as a captain. And the greatest writers, they work with that. They connect to that, and they come back to it, and they understand it. It's why Star Trek Picard is an unmitigated dumpster fire of a show. You have the show writers saying, well, Picard's never been a dad. He's never been a father. And, that's why he has difficulty with children. Guys, the Inner Light, he literally raised a family from start to finish and lived a whole lifetime. Fuck you, man. He was more than a daddy. He was like walking his daughter down the aisle and all this. How can you forget that? It was one of the most formative episodes in the entire show. And there's just thousands of little things like that a good writer can take and can work with and subvert expectations in a very positive way. I didn't expect anything in that episode to go the way that it did. We viewed Evil Morty as this Machiavellian supervillain, and it turned out to be just an enabler to reveal something that Rick had done to himself and to the universe as a consequence of internal pain. And his whole raison d'etre was just simply to remove himself from an abusive situation. They foreshadowed it brilliantly in the prior episode when they were talking about toxic relationships and abusive relationships. Rick was kind of playing with that with Morty, going with the Ravens, the Crows. But then it turned out that Evil Morty was foreshadowing what Evil Morty was attempting to do. Wow. And they went back to the Phoenix Project where like the clone Ricks are there and they all get re-triggered and so forth, and little things like that. A callback to the tampered portal fluid that they did with the hacked portal gun in the Citadel of Rick, season 3, episode 7, I think it was. Tales from the Citadel. Little stuff like that. So it shows you that Dan Harmon and his crew are absolutely genius writers, and they thought very, very carefully about the show. And I appreciate that as an audience. I get so frustrated when you go and do some experimental things as a show writer and you work really hard for 1 or 2 seasons, you get a wild success, and then you're like, okay, it's coasting time. Let's just, conveyor belt episode after episode. And there's no aim or direction to these types of things. That's what The Simpsons effectively did. They had these masterpiece seasons in the first 9 seasons, and now they've just been phoning it in as a show, and there's no arc, there's no purpose, there's no growth. The originally episode, you saw growth in the character, no growth in the characters. It's just an episodic thing of, monster movie of the day, this type of stuff. Yet there's profound growth with the character of Morty, the character of Rick, and so forth. And they touch topics in such a beautiful way. So great show, great finale. And I really look forward to seeing where they take it. It was a very ambitious thing to do, to kind of destroy all that and open it all up. And it's going to be fun to see where it goes. What's also interesting is the Jerry-Beth relationship. They said, hey, that whole relationship is just to create an endless supply of this very particular type of kid. There's a very low probability that if Beth was raised by Rick C-137 and not killed, that Beth would have married Jerry. There's no determinism or fate for that. There's an infinite amount of possibilities where that didn't happen. But for some reason, they keep trying to manufacture Mortys as a commodity and use them. That's not as explored as it needs to be inside the show. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Charles talks more about Rick and Morty than Hydra. Well, we released a video, a blog post. We have a whole presentation, and there's lots of stuff going on with it. There's a whole dedicated team. There's probably some beta shit to show you guys. Show up at the conference. The AMAs are about everything. And I love this right here. Shut the hell up, Charles, and talk about ongoing development with ADA. The point of the AMA is you can ask anything. You can ask about woolly mammoths. You can ask about aliens. You can ask about music. You can ask about art. You can ask about television shows. You can ask about Cardano. The Big Turtle Island IOHK posted on Twitter, is that a new video game on Cardano? No, that's the conference. We literally created a digital world just for the conference, for those who can't attend it in person. And I love this too. Charles, instead of watching Rick and Morty all the time, please do something about the project. Why? Because you bought at a certain price point, you're not happy with that. It's somehow my job to control the world. All right. And we tell everybody what we're doing. We tell them the deadlines. We make progress towards it. We launched Bloody Alonzo this month. It was the hardest launch we've ever done. We did it just like it was Sunday, no problem at all. Exactly 1 week from today. And you don't care. Why? Because you want the next thing. You want the next thing. It's my AMA. You don't like it, fucking leave. What's the most stressing thing that you have to deal with daily, and how do you think we can reduce the stress? I think, Luis, the most stressful thing is the unfairness of unrealistic expectations. You tell people, okay, we're going to go do something. It's going to take years to decades to fully realize. Here are the rules. Here's how we're doing it. This is how we're building. If you want to be part of it, join. And if we were judged whether we're achieving those expectations or not, there's no stress in that, because you're either delivering or not delivering. But then what happens is that people imprint unrealistic expectations on top of this. Like, this project will make me unbelievably wealthy, or make people like me, or somehow it's going to transform my entire life tomorrow. Now, you never told them that. You never did that. Yet they hold you accountable to those unrealistic expectations. And then when they're not met, they viciously attack you. And if it's one person, but it's a lot of people over Twitter, Reddit, Telegram, many other channels, and they become distractions to your ability to execute. What we did this month is we launched as a project smart contracts. And this is a completely new model for how to build decentralized applications. And it's a very advanced model, and it's an incredibly well thought out model. But then what's happened is that immediately people in industry came in and they applied an expectation of, well, it's out. Where are the 25,000 dApps? Where's all the commercial use? Where's all this stuff? It didn't happen tonight. All right, scam. It's over. Everything you've done is wrong. You didn't solve the concurrency issue. There is no concurrency issue. Yet you see dozens, hundreds of tweets about this. People talk about it. I've had musicians message me over private message in Twitter asking, is Cardano okay? I've been hearing really nasty things. And you're just like, what is going on? This is so nuts. That's the most stressful thing, because you can't win. You can't make those people happy. And then when you don't make them happy, they personally attack you. And they say that you're the world's worst human being and rah, 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 rah. And it just creates so much toxicity. So it's a constant challenge to just keep your nose to the grindstone and keep building and building and building and building. And you'll notice it's never enough. No matter what milestone you accomplish, when Coinbase, when this, when Shelley, when Goguen, when that, when this, when this, when that, when government deal, when Cardano Nation, when this, there's always the next one after you've done it. And it's never ending. And then when you try to do anything to show diversity of thought, like demonstrate that you have other interests outside of Cardano, then you get accused of somehow hurting the project or not making people money or these other things. They treat you like a slave in that respect. It's this bizarre notion, and it's more endemic of the people who believe this way. They're just looking for some hope, I guess. I don't know, but it's very stressful and it's very grating, and it wears you down. It drains you. You don't get to feel the wins. You don't get to feel like the ups. You just get the downs. And there's only so many days of downs before you need to just take a break and recharge and, get back to it. Please talk about tokenized woolly mammoths on the Cardano chain. So I reached out to Ben Lamb, and he's partnered with George Church. He runs they just announced their project, and hopefully we'll find a way if we can do something together. Very early days, we got to get NDAs in place and all these other things, and a lot to discuss. But that's a very personal partnership for me, because there's, woolly mammoth is a nice stunt, but really what you're talking about is the whole concept of de-extinction. The reality is, because of the way that we are conducting ourselves, we're burning the planet out. And every day, a lot of species go extinct. So if you can take an animal and pick a nice symbol like the woolly mammoth, because we've never seen one in person before, and it's part of the prehistoric history of humanity, and you can resurrect that animal, then what you've done is you've proved out an entire chain of technology that will enable de-extinction of any species that you have DNA for. It advances artificial womb technology, godsend to women whose reproductive organs have been damaged, or older women where it might be a little dangerous to have children. They can use that technology to do it with all the gene editing technology, bringing back the woolly mammoth has. And it's a godsend to all kinds of genetic experimentation that can be done. So it's a phenomenal company when you look at the bioethics, the science, and what it can do for environmental considerations. And there's a lot of incredibly passionate people there. Now, where that can meet our industries, we can create all kinds of new business models to make that more viable venture. For example, one of the ways you could fund a business like that is a lease system for mammoths to zoos. China leases out their pandas. They make a lot of money every year from that. You could basically create a system where you have 50 slots, whatever zoos want them. They agree to the bioethics of it, the habitat requirements of it, and they can buy out year by year a lease system, and it's an auction system, and highest bidder wins. Create price discovery and end up making hundreds of millions every year doing that, which that funding would then go to in creating larger herds that have great utility for global warming, and ultimately improving the technology for all de-extinction. All those mechanics can be beta tested and experimented with in a matter of weeks to months on a smart contract system, and don't require any permission to use. So this is the kind of intersections that can be used. The same for NFTs, the same for fractionalized ownership, all kinds of things that you can do. And, it's very early days, who knows? There are other people connected with that. But, I just wanted to show I have moral support to it. And that's why we reached out. And hopefully we can figure out something in the coming months or years that makes sense. But one thing that's undeniable, if it's not us, it'll be someone else in the industry. And if that can be done, it'll probably mean that project has an enormous amount of non-dilutive capital at its disposal to be able to exercise such a mission. And that's a collective achievement for humanity. It's not a company's achievement. It's like going to the moon. Yes, it's America's achievement. Our flag is sitting on there, but that's a human achievement in many respects. It's something every human being gets to say, our species has stepped on a different planetoid, on a moon. We've left Earth to the extent that we went to another heavenly body. If we bring back the woolly mammoth, then we know as a species, we have the capacity to resurrect the dead in a certain respect. If you can get DNA out of one of these mummies that's in Egypt or other places, you literally can bring them back with this technology. If we could find Alexander the Great's body, we can bring him back. Same for Genghis Khan or other people, if we can get a good enough DNA sample. That's a pretty incredible thing to participate in as a species. And then there's questions about the ethics of it. There's questions about the intellectual property considerations. There's questions about whether this should be a public technology or a private technology, or who should be the custodian of these things. And what happens when you have designer babies or other such things. A venture like this invites that kind of 21st century conversation and thought, which is sure as hell a lot more important than what is the tax rate. Charles, being based in Wyoming, Colorado, are you ever worried about the caldera erupting? If we have a super volcano erupt in Yellowstone, is game over for America and probably the whole world. That's an extinction level event, guys. VEI level 7 event. It makes Tamboa look like, or Krakatoa look like a walk in the park. And so I'm not worried about it. I'd rather be on the dying side and die quickly. Because if I somehow survive in that, that's like some Walking Dead shit. Is everyone in crypto anti-vax? Seems like a weird cost of admission. I'm not. I'm vaccinated. Got the Pfizer vaccine. That's somebody in crypto who's not. Mm-hmm. 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 Charles, thoughts on JPEG selling for millions of dollars? Okay, this one's interesting. So, a JPEG selling for lots of money is a situation where either it's irrational exuberance or it could be money laundering. So, here's how that money laundering works. So, you create an NFT. So, you take a picture of a rock, you create it, put it on one of these platforms. The platforms, a lot of them don't require KYC AML or any registration because they're non-custodial. So you create your rock picture. You say, I'm going to make big money from this rock picture. So let's say you have a lot of unreported crypto, or you got crypto from a nefarious source or something like that. Then what you do, you have this rock picture, is you sell it to yourself through your other account, which is some other person. And then that other person buys that rock NFT, and you've effectively just transferred money from an illegitimate source to now a legitimate source. I've sold artwork. Huzzah. You see this a lot with political corruption. So, some president's kid may sell artwork. Oh, some anonymous buyer bought my artwork for $500,000. Or you see this a lot with like speaking fees. They'll go, oh, well, yeah, we'll pay you $100,000 to do a 30-minute speech or something like that. Yeah, you're coming. Yeah, I don't even care what you talk about. You talk about the weather. You come up there. Like Al Gore, you are hearing me talk. Here's your $100,000. It has nothing at all to do with how you make decisions, what you do, right? So there's a soft corruption there. And I think there's a little bit of that. And that was certainly something that's been brought up by Treasury Department and other officials as a potential concern. But in general, I think that it's a market like any other. It's a surging market, and it's trying to find its place in price. It's going to go through a big bubble burst collapse, but there's real value there with the concept of NFTs. So that's going to increase over time, and inevitably it's going to result in finding a stable place and purpose and become part of the business experience. Would you support a flat 10% income tax for everyone filing taxes? I hate the income tax. I think we should go to a fair tax and just have national sales tax. Really, really believe that's the way to go. It's crazy, an income tax, because then suddenly it's the government's business about how much money you make. And then how much you get to keep is depending on who you are, what's going on politically, and the size of your lobby. Consumption tax says the more you interact with the market, the more you pay. Government's the regulator of the markets. They have every right to put a surcharge for that. They don't own me, and they don't own my money. I'm a slave if they think that. Should Tom Brady retire? He's the last football player I know anything about. I haven't watched football in a long time. I completely checked out when they went so political. I was like, I watch this game to be entertained. I don't watch this game to confront the great challenges of society. It's a sport. And the minute that they went down that road, I said, well, it's for someone else. It's just not for me. Yeah. But I respect enormously Brady's talent, his ability, and his consistency throughout his entire career. And when he retires, then that's the last link I have to football. And I'll just move on completely. Any suggestions on what to read after Learn You a Haskell for Great Good for Haskell students? The Haskell book. Just Google the Haskell book. Do you have any words for Norm Macdonald? Do you like comedy? I miss Norm. He was a great comedian. I enjoyed him on Saturday Night Live. He had a long and illustrious career. And it was real sad. Apparently, he was suffering from cancer for almost a decade, but he kind of kept it hidden. He was consistent with a lot of his statements, and he was a titan in comedy. He wasn't one of my favorite comedians, but he had a dry sense of humor that I did enjoy, and it was a lot of fun. And I never met him. Charles, what are your thoughts on universal basic income? I think it only works when you have a sovereign wealth fund. Otherwise, it's just inflation fest. Hydra is just a slightly better Lightning network, which Bitcoin already has. You don't even fucking know what you're talking about. What's an isomorphic state channel? Do you understand that at all? I know you are a mycologist. No, I am not a mycologist. Let me tell you something. Mycologists are scary, scary invested. Okay. I am an amateur mushroom fan at best. These guys who are into mycology, they will write book after book after book and dedicate their entire existence to everything fungi related. They will go and live in the forest and spend months looking for some fruiting bodies somewhere. And they'll study the beetles and the boletes and all these other things. They're hardcore, man. When you go all in mycology, there's no going back. Never go full mycology. So no, I'm not a mycologist. And to answer your question, I haven't looked too much into algae. When I get into aquaponics, I definitely will. When is Hoskinson Bison hitting the market? Got 500 of them. They keep breeding. I had 400. Now I got 500. Bison just populate like rabbits. We'll have a whole bunch to say about crypto bison at the summit. Coke Zero or Diet Coke? Neither. I haven't drank a soft drink in 5 years. You like KFC? When I was a teenager, I worked at a KFC. It was a KFC Taco Bell. Didn't even have the dignity of being a full KFC. So the extra crispy chicken, if you're ever curious about how they make it with the fryer, with the original recipe, the lid goes down. and they fry it in the pressure cooker, and the extra crispy, the lid is actually up during the entire time. Finger licking good. Do you have any children yet? None that I know of. How was Freya? Full size. Take a picture for you guys one of these days. Now, I've already answered this one. Would you rather fight 5 duck-sized horses or a horse-sized duck? Always fight the bigger animal, the horse-sized duck. Did you ever meet Colonel Sanders? No, Colonel Sanders unfortunately had already met his demise prior to the time I was born in '87. However, a statue of Colonel Sanders during a very tense game involving the Osaka Tigers was stolen and thrown into the Namba Channel in Japan, and it took years to find him. How's your secret love affair going? Pretty good. Has its ups and downs. Are you going to relocate to Miami? No. Yellow status. We should have more to say at the summit. You are so funny. Love from Malawi. I'm actually going there. I'll be there next month, Mimi. Is the samurai suit in your office real? Yes, it was made by a Japanese armor smith. Shipped here from Tokyo. See you on September 25th. See you too. What do you recommend for a beginner for programming? I started with Java and Python. I do Python. Hey, Charles, can any improvements be made to make the wallet faster? Oh, yeah. I tell you what, you don't believe me? I'm going to hire the Kool-Aid guy, and he'll just break through the wall and be like, oh, yeah. With Macho Man Randy Savage in the bowl. Oh, yeah. That's how much of an oh, yeah we can do to speed it up. It's going to get done. Are you ever going to California? I do go to California from time to time. That state is completely lost. It's pretty sad, actually. It's one of the prettiest states in the Union, and it's politically unsalvageable. Thoughts on meditation? Do it. Thoughts on thinking? I'll have to give it a thought. Can we start burning ADA for scarcity? Yay! Congratulations, everybody! We have a winner of the Paint Chip Brigade of the day. And today's winner is Diesel Kane. And Diesel Kane, I really appreciate how much effort you put into your greed and stupidity and displayed it across everybody here in the ADA field. Diesel, come on, give us some words today. Go ahead and tell the audience how proud you are to win the Paint Chip Brigade of the day. We are so glad you can tell us that we got to destroy other people's money so that you can make a little extra money and then sell the ADA and move on to someone else. We're just so happy that you want to steal from everybody in this ecosystem. I don't understand how you get up in the morning being so awesome and so amazing. Wow. Wow, it's just an honor that you're here, my friend. It's just an honor. So glad to have you here. I got to get a button that I can just push, and like lights will come down and confetti, and it will automatically send an email to your mother telling us how proud we are that she raised a son who's like that, or daughter. It's hard to know. You just have a little Bitcoin logo, although you're probably a guy if we're looking at statistics. But God, thank you for telling us to steal money from people and destroy that money so that you can get a little small value appreciation in your ADA. God, I mean, what other things will you suggest? Perhaps when you go to the supermarket, you don't have to pay for groceries. Or, maybe when you go to the gas station, that we can just take gasoline out of other people's cars and put it in your car, diesel. Or maybe you drive a truck because you got diesel, right? So maybe we can take the diesel out of other people's trucks and put it in your truck so you don't have to pay for the diesel. And you know what? Why even have to date or have a relation? If you see some guy's wife that you like, we should just grab her and give her to you. Why not? There you go. That's how society should work. Oh, man. Thank you. Thank you. Fucking prick. Well, I think the lobster should be named Ringo. Did it ever get a name? Well, Nez Cook, that's a very good question. We have a lobster naming contract, over 300 votes so far out of 500 for version 1. We're already in discussions about improving the contract for lobster version 2. So perhaps we'll have an announcement about that. You never know. Charles, are you happy? Very happy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Has anyone who publicly admonished you ever reached out to apologize? Nope. Never do. They say horrible things. They write horrible things. They sometimes even go so far, call me a sociopath, a narcissist, pathological liar, all kinds of stuff. Scammer, criminal, should be in jail. And then when we prove them wrong time and again, there's never an apology. There's never a, hey, maybe we got it wrong, so sorry about that. Mm-mm. And that's why you don't look for an apology, because they are never wrong in their own head. Especially him. Molten Tar Monster number 3. But joke's on him, because I'm going to create an NFT series and sell it for millions of dollars. I love getting back at these bastards. I'm a piece of shit human. He just spent 2 minutes insulting a man for not knowing how the blockchain works. No, I spent 2 minutes because the person is fully aware that what he's asking for is the destruction of someone else's property and value to enrich himself. You're projecting. You're projecting. You should get that looked at. They sell projectors. Charles, you got to get healthy, bro. I'm feeling good. Soul's clear, bro. Feeling great, bro. Former radio guy. Would love to do a voiceover for Cardano. Whom should I contact? Well, Gino Norman, make some videos, send them my way. If you're good, Might have a job for you. Should we colonize other planets? Well, of course we're going to colonize other planets. And mandatory viewing will be having everybody who's going to other planets play the game Dead Space. Oh, do you think the Ripple case can affect the crypto market? Absolutely. Have you seen Dune? I just heard it came out, and it's like 6 weeks early. It comes out in Europe, but not here in America. Makes me pretty sad. But I'll watch it when it comes out. It's Dune. Come on. The spice must flow. What about the radiation, Charles? That is the goggles do nothing question. We'll figure it out. They got cool new spacesuits. Genetic engineering can also solve that. They got like fungus and bacteria that actually eat radiation now. We're finding it in Chernobyl. Look it up. Pretty cool. What sort of drunk are you? Not drunk at all. I'm drinking coffee right now. My name is Giovanni Giorgio, but everybody just calls me Giorgio. Magic the Gathering on the blockchain. This is a literal case study of the power of blockchain and collectibles for card games. It's not if, but when, and that's going to happen for somebody in our space. Did you read Karl Marx? Yes. You know, Reagan used to say, a communist is someone who reads Karl Marx. A capitalist is someone who understands Karl Marx. From James Hazard, doesn't the Cardano hard fork combinator make the network somewhat centralized? Not if HFC is in complete control of the community now, does it? And that's going to be something that gradually moves its way there. And that makes me a one blessed mama. What will be engraved on your tombstone? Here lies Charles Hoskinson. He was eventually right. You ever met Michael Jordan? No, I've never had the pleasure. Why were you so harsh on that guy? I thought you were looking for a target to get off on. All these haters wanted to get back at. Very disappointing behavior, Charles. Seriously. Oh, no. Call a spade a spade. Guys, Life isn't about safe spaces and padded cells and everybody getting along all the time. Eggs must be broken. Egos must be challenged. You call out bad behavior when you see it. A world of difference between people asking honest opinions, honest questions out of ignorance, and you walk them through, versus somebody who's exhibiting mercenary transactional behavior. And you never reward mercenary transactional behavior. You just don't do it. Oh, come on, guys. You got to ask this. I graduated from high school early. If you had to star in a 90s TV show, which one would it be? Doogie Howser and Neil Patrick Harris is awesome. Yeah, that's why Charles needs to get fit. Got that mashed potato look. Wait, thank you. This belt of protective fat is here to keep the radiation off of me. I'm working on it, guys. I got a personal trainer. I've lost 10 pounds. It's one of those things that's a high priority goal for next year. And when I get all in shape, y'all think I have cancer or something because I'll look trim and fit. Oh, Charles is losing all this weight. Oh, no. Diesel lives matter. Create an NFT for that. And then we can burn it. Ah, shit. Don't take life too seriously, too. Do you believe in communism in the future? No. Communism is probably the most evil governmental system ever defined. Killed 100 million people. It's worse than any other. It's the systematic destruction of honesty, objectivity, truth, the deification of government, and the destruction of humanity. Everything that makes you an individual gets taken from you in a communist system. Don't believe me? Talk to all the people gulagged. I like Fat Charles. That's the Fat Albert of 2021. Hey, hey, hey. You guys remember Fat Albert? Come on now. And I'll say that, and they'll be like, Charles pretends to be older than he actually is. I know. Charles is saying, I mean, oh, fuck you. It's another thing that bothers me. It's driving me nuts. That's why I can't wait this damn vacation. You can't do anything right. I dress this way. That's how I dress. I dress that way to cosplay an old math professor. Yeah. I have 2 pens in the pocket. Why? Because pen runs out. So you have to have redundant pen. You also can change colors. You have a red pen or a blue pen or a black pen, and you can always spice it up a little bit. You also have different points on the pen. You can have a fine point for signing and one of those medium points for writing, right? And so it makes sense to have 2 pens. It's a very important thing. Just can't win. Everything you say and do, somebody has an opinion on. Case in point. And case in point. Are you and Gavin Wood still on good terms? I don't even think we ever were on good terms from the day we met. Although that said, I respect the work he does in the polka dot community. And at some point, we'll probably do something at some juncture. It's bound to happen. Ever experience ink leakage? Yes. The worst part is when you have the pen open and you put it in your pocket. You get the little bit of ink there. So what I always do is I always feel the tip before I put it in my shirt. I haven't gotten to the pocket protector level. Have you read Murray Rothbard? Yes, sir. And Hayek and Mises and all the other Austrian economists. How do you read these comments so fast? I'm a fast reader. Are those glasses real or for intellectual effect? No, I just wear glasses, just because, right? Let me just get my wheelchair over there. It's also for effect. Take my crutches over. Oh my God. What's your here, this one. What's your giraffe's name? Chips the giraffe. I'm gonna see him, by the way, in South Africa. Visit Sweden? Yes, I have. I've been to Stockholm. Is IOHK hiring? Yes, sir, we are. Charles, you're crashing the market. If I had that power, guys. Jesus, it's hard to get through this chat. You're telling me, man. Oh, Lord. Yeah, I saw this one too. Novogratz compared us to anti-vaxxers. He absolutely did. I don't know what's up with that guy. I really don't. You live in New York, you live in that bubble, it is what it is. Can't take it too seriously, though. You really can't. Charles, what's your biological age? 29. Do you lose your hair for intellectual effect? This guy gets it. Thank you, Jim. You fucking get it. Thank you. Okay, Aardvark, will you ever answer one of my questions? What was your question? I missed it. The chat's moving too quickly. Is reality a simulation? If it is, I want my money back. Oh! I got one that I really want to answer here. It moved too damn quickly. Rah. Avalanche consensus is actually patented. Is that true? Is it? Oh, God damn it. I'm going to look that up now. I thought the paper was open source and the code was under Apache. I'm just gonna give up and go home if that's the case. God damn it. Because I remember the Team Rocket paper came out first. They wrote it under a pseudonym, so how could they patent it and say it's prior art? Interesting. That was the whole issue with Tezos. So Arthur worked for, I think it was Morgan Stanley, or one of those investment shops while the paper for Tezos came out. So it was published under his pseudonym, L.M. Goodman. I think he did that because he probably had a deal where his work belonged to the investment bank. That was one of those interesting artifacts. Can you explain the problem with patented consensus? Yeah, one person or one entity has a monopoly over something and can prevent other people from doing something with it. So let's say you have a founder, the founder disagrees with what the community wants to do, they hard fork against his wishes to a different configuration of the system, but because the founder has that, anyone who then uses that hard fork can say that his intellectual property has been violated and sue them. If you don't believe me, could you imagine the damage Bitcoin could have happened to Bitcoin had Craig Wright had Bitcoin patents at the beginning? Any person who disagreed with SV's vision would then get sued by that litigious person. It's the point of a patent is it gives a monopoly to somebody for an invention for a period of time. And that person acts as a gatekeeper for deciding who can use it. Now they can say, well, we're not going to do that. Well, I'm not going to do that. Why do you have the patent? Why? Just open source it. Oh, we have to protect, competition. Well, why do you get to decide what's competition for that thing? So if 95% of the community disagrees with you and moves in a different direction than what you want, wouldn't that be competition because you think that they're wrong and you have the patent, so you get to decide? Think about it. It's a hyper centralization around an entity or a person, whoever owns the IP, hyper centralization. So that's why I have a problem with it. It's the antithesis of everything I've ever seen in a floss world. There we go. What character for Diablo 2 resurrected? Well, obviously the Druid. And when are you making that game company? We're working on it. Will you consider remote employees for Canada? We might. Oh, you people. Does Cardano survive if you died tomorrow? Yeah. And some people would even argue that Cardano would be doing better. You never know. It's decentralized, guys. Could you see proof of history coming to Cardano in the future? No. No. We've been analyzing the protocol. There's ways to improve it, but it's not terribly novel right now. All right, everybody. I think I'm going to call it a day, don't you? I got somebody I got to pick up from the airport here in a little bit anyway. Normally we do the microfinance stuff on Kiva, but what I'm going to do is push that to the next AMA. We'll do 2 people instead of 1 because I don't have time to go and select a candidate. Been fun as always. Love all you guys. And until next time, and I'll see you at the summit here on the 25th and 26th. And then there's the Africa tour. And I'm going to be tweeting and broadcasting and do all kinds of crazy things. I got to come up with cool slogans, So Wyoming is rough and rugged Wyoming. And then we have, warm and sunny Colorado. But what should we do for South Africa? What should we do for Burundi? What should we do for Zanzibar? I got to come up with pithy things on the jet ride over. All right. Cheers, everyone.